Hello folks, this is Bill from Little White Dory, back with one more installment on the YouTube channel. Um, Recently I've been told that I should consider putting some of my life stories on YouTube. The example I gave yesterday to somebody, well, that somebody happens to be Rob the Sapper Gardener. He's down in Virginia near DC, I believe. And I don't know, I guess I just put comments in his videos and mentioned things about my life and comparisons. And the other day he was doing a East African or African fish stew, to which I said, wow, that looks fantastic. It reminds me how much I love seafood. And I mentioned in it that as a young kid, maybe, I think it's probably from about 13 years old to probably 17, maybe 18, I guess when I graduated high school. I had a neighbor, actually two neighbors, that would go fishing. One neighbor owned a school bus company, and as part of his perks as owning a school bus company, the company bought a motorboat, a fishing boat. And over the years he upgraded to the point where the last boat I was out on was a 42-foot, a brand new 42-foot Silverton cabin cruiser with, I guess it was considered a fly bridge and then a tower on top of that. It was a full-blown fishing boat. And my next door neighbor, Arnold, well, so Stanley was the guy who owned the boat, and Arnold was my next door neighbor. And I mentioned in the comment that I used to go fishing minimum once a week from probably about now, end of April through probably November to sometimes December, depending upon the weather. Oh man, I don't know what's with my chickens. One of them is just getting beat up. I'm going to ignore it for the moment because she deals with it when I'm not here. Anyway, so my neighbor would take his boat fishing typically Saturday and Sunday every weekend, sometimes also on a Friday evening. And so when I say once a week, it was quite often sometimes 3 times in a week. And he had no qualms about spending gas going from Long Island over to Connecticut or out into the ocean from the South Shore. So I extensively fished the South Shore of Long Island near Fire Island Inlet and the North Shore, literally from, say, Cold Spring Harbor out to Shoreham on both sides of the Long Island Sound. And it was a great experience. I mean, we caught every conceivable kind of fish you can imagine that we had in this area. Porgies, blackfish, bunker, which has just recently made the news. I can remember seeing whales out in the Sound and in the Bay once. Sand sharks, skates, striped bass, bluefish, mackerel, flounder, fluke, sea robins, a lot of them. All kinds of different things. Herring, gosh, I mean, just so many different kinds of fish. And of course, I did see over the years the decline in the catch. So that's a little sad. But what's prompting me to finally, Rob, to do this little video to tell you a little story about me is that I've just come home from a funeral service for Arnold, my next door neighbor. Arnold and his wife also had 2 daughters, Karen and Inga. They were Swedish. He was German. The wife was Swedish. 2 beautiful young Swedish girls. He did not have a son. I came from a family with 2 boys, myself and my brother, Irish and Polish. And well, as much as my mom wished she had a daughter, Arnold next door wished he had a son. So I became very, very close with Arnold over the years when we would go fishing. And, you know, we really, well, I used to know him in 2 ways. He was Mr. Haje on the weekdays when he was living next door, and he was Arnold, my fishing buddy, when we would be out fishing. And so at the wake today, at the service, I should say, I had said to his daughters that, you know, I know you guys are losing your dad, and I'm, you know, terribly sorry about that. I said, but I have to stop and say that I've lost my first fishing buddy. I fished with him so many times over the years, and basically the deal was I got to go fishing for free. Between Arnold and Stanley, they paid for all the food, all the beer, all the soda. In my case, it was only an occasional beer. Bait, fishing tackle, you know, and a great ride on a beautiful boat most of the time. But Arnold passed away about 2 weeks ago down in Florida. And ironically, you talk about good neighbors. My parents lived next door to them in Long Island, and when they moved to Florida, they took up residence just down the block again from Arnold and his wife also. So, funny story I can tell about my fishing trip. There was many a time where we'd be out in really crappy weather. In particular, in the early spring, we would like to go out for the mackerel run. Mackerel would run through Long Island Sound, I guess on their way north or south, whatever it was at that time of year, I guess north. And when they came in, you could put out an umbrella rig and have 4 or 5 of them on the line at once. Well, those umbrella rigs could get a little tangled if you started having multiple strikes and multiple hits. And so this one particular time, it was kind of a snotty day. It was cold. It was, I don't know why, I want to think it was raining a little bit. And somehow we wound up getting one of the umbrella rigs caught on the outdrive. Now this was a, let's see, I don't remember which boat that was, but it had dual inboard motors and your typical outdrives, or maybe it was considered an IO, inboard outboard. And so in order to get the lines off of the outdrive, the kid, being me, would be volunteered to, here, you see what you can do. See if you can get it off the prop. I'll lift the engine up or the outdrive up and see what you can do. And so I can remember one time reaching out over the bow, or excuse me, over the stern, and I could reach to the prop. I'm not a short guy. I was pretty tall, so I always was probably, you know, the tall, skinny kid. And I'm reaching out, and I'm just about able to reach to the prop to get this unraveled, when all of a sudden I feel 2 sets of hands grab each of my ankles and said, "Don't worry, Bill, we've got you." And they pushed me out another 6 inches or so, maybe it was a foot more, at my waist over the back end of the boat. And sure enough, I could reach the prop to undo the line. And as I look up, I see a wave coming at me. Comes into the back of the boat, soaks me. From my head down to my knees, I was probably underwater in this wave as I hit the back of the boat. It was cold. It was nasty. It was hysterical now that I think about it, but at the time, I remember thinking, that's it, I'm never going to untangle these lines ever again. But it's my childhood. It was sad to see Arnold go today. He served the country, so he's going to be buried, or his ashes will be buried out at Calverton National Cemetery. And they had a honor guard there that did the flag ceremony. Really, really nice. I mean, it sure did make me feel like this guy was, you know, being honored the right way. So, Sapper Gardener, there's your story. Arnold, wherever you are, I hope you're looking down on me with a smile and remembering the same story as I am. And maybe I'll come up with some of the other stories. And like I said, Rob, if I ever get to talking about the time I found the dead body in San Diego, that's another story for another day. Okay, folks, I hope you're having a good day. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.